Welcome back to another episode of Real True Facts, the Real True Podcast. My name is Brooke Burke.
And I am Walt Cronkite.
Hi, Walt.
Not that one.
Today's show is about one of our favorite cryptids, the Mothman.
Wow, fancy word, cryptids. But
Cryptid, yeah, I know.
Yeah, Mothman, a.k.a. the Mothman.
The Mothman.
Yep. Harbinger of Doom.
Well, maybe. Harbinger of Doom. Maybe Truth Seer, Ultimate Truth Seer.
Yeah, or Harbinger of Lottery Winners. We just don't know. That's what we're here to find out today.
We are. This story of the Mothman is actually really near and dear to my heart. I didn't know if you knew that, Walt.
I did not. Why is that?
Well, the Mothman's origins, I think, are very similar to my own. So I feel like we're kind of kindred spirits. We are actually both from West Virginia. Mm-hmm. The Mothman was originally spotted in West Virginia. I was born in West Virginia. And so I grew up listening to my mom actually tell stories about the Mothman. And the older I got and the more I developed my psychic abilities, I realized that the Mothman also had those psychic abilities. So I feel always very connected to this creature. So I'm excited to get more into that and learn more about him today.
Wow. Okay. You share a home birthplace with the Mothman. That's
different cities, but the same state. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess we do have states and cities, but maybe we'll talk about that more later. But first,
did you know?
Did you know the shape of a computer mouse was inspired by an Adidas sneaker?
Oh, I didn't know that. Did you know wind-powered cars predate steam, electric, and ice?
Nice. Did you know rhinestones are just diamonds that have been left in the earth longer?
Whoa. Did you know the human femur has 1.5 times stronger density than the average candlestick?
Did you know only women can see the color yellow?
I actually did know that.
Well, if you're a man seeing the color yellow, you're not.
Oh. Well, did you know that scissors were originally called stizzers until Abraham Lincoln misspoke in a speech?
Well, that sounds familiar.
I always thought it was skizzers, but I guess it's stizzers.
Did you know, from a geometrical standpoint, picture frames are just smaller versions of the frames used to build barns? Your dog is opening up drawers.
All right. So for those of you unfamiliar with the Mothman, I thought maybe we could give you a little history lesson. So let's imagine, if you will, we'll go all the way back to 1960s West Virginia in a town called Point Pleasant. And that is the location of the first sighting of the Mothman. And the local newspaper, the Point Pleasant Register, reported that couples saw a man-sized bird creature, but the headline was amazing. It says, couples see man-sized bird creature something. So that was the headline. That was the first sighting.
Is there a question mark in that headline, or
it was a bunch of ellipses. So it was couples see man-sized bird ... creature ... something.
Okay, so there still is an air of mystery. Yeah,
no one knew. They just knew they saw something, and I think it's just so spooky, and it really rounds it out that the first people to see the Mothman were actually grave diggers.
Oh, because they only work at night, or because they work in graveyards?
It just adds to the air of mystery and spookiness, and kind of gives you that. So I imagine there's a lot of fog, and then like the guy holds up the lantern and he squints into the fog, and they're just like, "What is that?" But it'd be more like, "What is that?" Because it was West Virginia, so.
That's a good. I assume that's a good West Virginia accent. I'm not sure entirely.
It's super accurate.
Okay.
So So it was a couple of grave diggers. They saw the first sighting. The second sighting came from some young people, some like fun young
Right, youth,
teens.
right.
Yeah, some youths, some 1960s youths. So that gives you a picture. They're probably driving up to make out point or whatever. And they were driving by an old munitions plant from the World War II, and they reported seeing a large flying man with a 10-foot wingspan. So this is two separate occasions, two different people. They're seeing the same thing.
Wow, 10 foot. So to put that in perspective, a 10-foot wingspan, that's 10 feet. That's 4 feet longer than 6-foot wingspan.
It is. I like to
To
think
put
of
in
it
perspective,
in
yeah.
terms of that poster of Michael Jordan when he has his arms stretched out, and it's like a life size. Like you could see that his like arm span is like 6 feet, maybe even longer
Yeah, and
than
the
that.
ball is in one hand, right?
Yeah, the ball is in one hand. But just imagine that, but like
So a
4 feet
flying
longer.
Michael Jordan with an even longer or wider wingspan.
It's like 1.5 Michael Jordans.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, one Michael Jordan was quite a bit.
Let's just add 0.5, and that's the Mothman.
Right.
So those were the first two sightings. Other witnesses believe that the Mothman, and this is a story that I grew up hearing from my mom, other witnesses believe that the Mothman gave them premonitions of the Silver Bridge collapse. The Silver Bridge,
Was
obviously,
this a bridge? Was this a
bridge.
bridge made out of silver or above silver? What was
It was painted silver.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't really silver. It was just painted silver. So they called it the Silver Bridge, and it was really creative. But it collapsed and it killed 46 people. And multiple.
Wait, that seems really. I was just imagining like a wooden bridge because it was painted, and when I heard
it was like,
and it killed 46 people.
Yeah,
That's
it was
more
like
than
steel.
I.
Well, yeah, it wasn't like a wooden bridge. It wasn't like the bridges of Madison County. Like it was like one of those, like a big, what do they call it? Suspension bridge.
Yeah, big bridge.
Yeah, it was a big suspension bridge, and it killed 46 people when it collapsed. And there were multiple witnesses that came forward and said that the Mothman gave them premonitions of the Silver Bridge collapse, and no one listened to them. And then another instance of people saying that the Mothman gave them premonitions was in 1999 in Moscow. They said that the Mothman foreshadowed a bombing of an apartment building. So, maybe he's here to help. Maybe he is a harbinger of doom, but maybe he's also helping us a little bit.
Yeah, kind of advising us of, I guess, these kind of like mid-tier disasters, like not just someone falling downstairs or one person dying, but that, right in the middle there, not quite the big things we might need help with.
Yeah, like not like global disasters, but a very like, state level, country level disaster where you hear about it in the newspaper and you're like, oh my God. But, maybe he was trying to help prevent these things by coming down, and I assume he comes down from something because he flies, so he was just airborne and came down. But there's a lot of speculation about why he's here, but I think we should start from a biological standpoint and see if it is even scientifically possible for a man to also be a moth.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to start is, what is he? Maybe we can figure some of that out. I think we have the person for that, our resident in-house scientist.
I think we do too. Dr. Seymour. Hello. All right. Signal's a little spotty today. All right. See, Dr. Seymour, are you here?
I'm here. Good day, all.
Oh, good day.
Great to hear from you from your bunker.
Yes, it's good to hear that you guys are doing well and your bunkers as well.
Great, thanks. So we're here, we're talking about Mothman, but we want to get a sense of, maybe what is he or it? And Brooke made a good point is, can a moth also be a man, or can a man also be a moth? What are the, scientifically speaking, what kind of precedent do we have?
Well, both moths and man do fall under the same scientific classification as far as kingdom goes of Animalia.
And what was that? Sorry, I said oh.
So, Animalia.
Animalia, right? Okay, so that's chalk that one up on the board. That's number one.
I believe that is Latin.
It is. Very keen ear there.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what the English translation for that Latin word is, but yes, definitely Latin. But once we get into phylum, species, class, there are some differences. Moths are considered insects, whereas humans are not. And the big reason is number of legs. Humans do meet all of the qualifications and characteristics of being insects, except for only having 2 legs instead of 6.
Okay, so humans have 2 legs and insects have 6. So it's safe to say that if a human had 6 legs, it would indeed be an insect.
Correct, and that's where the possibility of a Mothman or a man moth becomes reality. If a human is able to generate those extra legs and exhibits the traits that we define moth-like, which is subtly different, mostly in the form of the antenna from being butterfly-like, we could consider them a Mothman. Or if a moth were to lose 4 legs, and there's a lot of other ways that we like to define humanity, but that would be step 1 for a moth becoming a man.
Right, and some might say the most important step, going from 6 legs down to 2. That really is a big part of what makes us human.
That's evolution, and whenever it comes to evolution, I always just accept what I'm being told, because we have so many missing links. We have so many missing links just with humans in general and where we came from. We don't really know where we came from. So it would stand to reason that some kind of Mothman, maybe that is a higher evolution than we are. Maybe that is something from the future. Like, there is also a theory that the Mothman is also an alien, that it may not be something from this planet. It may be from a different planet or a different galaxy. And we talked a lot about that in the last show, about these aliens coming down to Earth and just kind of hanging around and staying here. So the Mothman might actually be an alien from somewhere else completely. So he may not even be from us, or maybe we are sort of the midpoint of where we might end up. If we stay this course of evolution, we might end up being like him or being like it.
Yes, you make a very good point evolutionarily there. As we look back, you said so many missing links, but there is innumerable evidence that points to the fact that Neanderthals and the first Homo sapiens existed at the same time. It wasn't that one ceased to exist and then the next came along. That's not how evolution works. So it's very reasonable that the next step in human evolution is already among us, and there are more than a few of that being circulating among our population of what we would consider present-day human beings or Homo sapiens.
Right. So that would, that explains a lot of things. What's next? That's why there aren't so many of them, because it's that overlap that we're making the transition.
Yeah, and we don't know if it is the same Mothman. We don't know if there is a whole family of Mothmen. Is there a moth woman? Is this like a whole...
Let's not be ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that's the thing you don't believe, is that there couldn't be a moth woman.
No. To be perfectly honest and fair, yes. I think we say Mothman just like mankind.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess they would have to reproduce in some way. I don't know. Maybe there have been cases of moth people courting humans, or maybe there was a moth that courted a human that courted a moth to create this in the first place.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have some some accounts here, some details, because we have a pretty special guest today, don't we?
We do, and we have a lot of questions today, but I think if you want to talk about missing links, I think our guest today is going to be the missing link between our speculations and the actual logic of the Mothman. So I'm excited to get into our guest today.
Okay. So we'll be right back and really dig deep into this, maybe get some real details.
Newspapers have been reporting about the Mothman for decades, and so our guest today is a reporter from the publication Today's Town and Country. Joining us today is reporter John Patrick Kobracks. Hello, John Patrick.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much, Walt and Brooke, for letting me be on the show. You can actually, it's John Patrick Kobracks, Kobracks, but you can call me Johnny.
Johnny. I was going to ask if it was, if it was JP or John Patrick or Johnny. It makes things a lot easier. So, yeah, I'm great to have you here because we can talk about the theoreticals all day. But from what I understand, you have some much more tangible evidence.
Yes, the whole Mothman situation is what I like to call it. Point Pleasant, West Virginia, happened back in the 60s, which you mentioned earlier in your program. I live in Mason, which is about 10.5 miles east of where the first sighting of Mothman was. And I, as you mentioned earlier, and this is always a touching thing, one of the men that originally saw those five that were in the Gravediggers was actually my father.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
He was with the men. It was a regular night. I'm not sure exactly who they were digging a grave for, a local, I suppose. They heard some kind of noise, some shuddering in the branches, some kind of. I remember my dad telling me this story. Ironically, he would tell me this story before going to bed. I know.
That's pretty common. I remember hearing my stories before bed too. It was almost sort of like a West Virginian lullaby almost.
Absolutely. I agree with you totally, Brooke. And hearing this story of how each man saw this man with huge like wings flutter around in the trees. It was a very quick thing. They didn't get a full scope of what it was until I think later when they heard stories from others. But it was very interesting. And my father, the reason I got into this studying the Mothman was 25 years after the original sighting. And this is always a hard story for me to tell. Mm-hmm. Dad he ended up working for a company that from Mason, they would go from Mason to Point Pleasant, and they would deliver, car parts and mechanical parts for some of the factories out there. And it was late one night. My father was driving his truck by himself, heading out to Point Pleasant, and he had a tire blow, and he stopped, of course, and it's a truck, so he wasn't able to, it was a pretty good sized truck, so he, not an 18-wheeler, but more like a 6 to 8 wheels or what have you. And he was not able to actually change that tire on his own, is what I heard. And the story is he was waiting. And this, of course, is way before cell phones. The communication would take a long time. It was almost in that, in the 80s there.
Yeah.
If you did have a cell phone, I suppose it was the size of a shoe. But he heard some kind of like a fluttering noise or a flapping noise, and then boom, a thud on the top of his truck. And when we finally, police or somebody had pulled over and finally found the truck on the side of the road, there was no sign of my father.
Oh my God.
Absolutely gone. And the only thing they did find was some man feathers, is what I like to call them, which were feathers way bigger than a condor or an eagle or the largest bird you can imagine. And so legends and people around the Point Pleasant suggested that perhaps the Mothman had taken him. And that is exactly why I went into investigative reporting for today's Town and Country.
So your vocation is you're can you just let us know you're a reporter? For how long? What's what's your
right around? Well, thank you, Walt. Right around the time that incident happened, I would have been probably 15 years old. It's always hard for me to talk about this.
And we at Real True Facts are so sorry for your loss.
And Brooke, that means a lot.
Yeah, we know it's hard for you to come out and talk to us about this on the show. We were not truly prepared for you to go in as deeply as you did, but we surely appreciate it. Just because it does, it's healing. And so we really appreciate you sharing your story today.
Thank you.
A real part of Real True Facts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And from that point on is where I gained my, I'm going to find this thing. I am going to, this is no folklore. This is real.
Yeah.
And I'm going to find this thing, and I'm going to expose this, and so I've dedicated my life for the last, since the 80s, for a long time, to find out why and how my father was released from the world.
So not only are you dedicated to journalism, but you're also dedicated to justice and the truth. And I've read many of your articles in preparation for you coming on the show today, and I must say the level with which you write and the grasp of the English language that you have, it's almost
passion.
Yeah, it's a passion, and your writing is very concise, but you also feel the emotion. It's very much like the way Stephen King writes. Like, it's a very intense and horrific way, but it is also accessible. And so, just a few of the articles, who is the Mothman? Why is the Mothman? You've gone through all the who, what, when, where's, and why's on him over the years. And
going back to what you said, Brooke, Mothman, man or woman, was a great article I wrote.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how I got the idea for that, because up until I read your article, I was just assuming it was one. And so it could be multiple. Mm-hmm. You did mention that there was feathers. So you can call them man feathers?
Mm-hmm. I absolutely believe that's what it is.
Yeah. The statue that is in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, that they display, they have Mothman days. I've been to a few of them myself, but they have Mothman days. They show the Mothman as a man with moth wings. But what you're saying here, based on the evidence that you have from your family history, that these are actually feathers. They're not really an insect wing, but more of like a bird wing.
Well, Brooke, it's funny you should say that. When the original feathers, and that's what I like to call them, the feathers were found, everybody thought it was a joke or funny thing, not laughing at my father's demise, obviously, but I guess that was maybe the best way to describe it at that time. Man feathers, and it kind of stuck. I don't know what you call technically a moth's feather. It's a very, I believe a moth is. It's a very leathery type setup, I think.
Well, if we could ask Dr. Seymour, we know for a fact that moths do not have feathers. They actually have some kind of a membrane. Is that correct?
Yes, on their wings, it is a membrane, but one of the major things that distinguishes moth from butterfly is the featheriness of the antenna. So it's not unreasonable to think that unusually large feathers could be attributed to an unusually large moth.
Okay, so the feather that Johnny has could actually be from antennae.
Yeah, that's very reasonable. They aren't feathers in like the exact bird sense. They wouldn't have all of the same characteristics, but to a layperson, it's very reasonable that it would just look like a moth. Something from a moth's antenna would look like an unusually small feather, or something from a giant moth's antenna would look like an unusually large feather.
So, yeah, because, when something is in the sky, that's probably just the first word that comes out. You're not going to say a scale or a shedding or something. So that makes a lot of sense that would just be the first reaction. And as we all know, you say it once and it sticks no matter how accurate it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, people say, "Oh, it's a bird, it's a plane." They don't go, "Oh, it's a moth, it's a hang glider." Like, the obvious thing is what people usually go towards.
Right.
First.
The comfort, the level of comfort there.
Yeah.
So I have to ask. I have to ask the question: have you personally seen a Mothman?
Johnny, I call myself Johnny right now because I feel that inside, and sometimes I end up talking to myself and going, Johnny, you did not see this, you did not see it. But I feel like I did see this, and it pushed my mind back and forth. When I was a young child, about at 3 or 4 in the morning, I had awoken just to go get like a glass of water in the kitchen, and as I opened my door to my bedroom, and if you go left, there was a long hallway down to the kitchen. On the right before the kitchen, on the far right would be my mom and dad's room, and then my sister's room would be on the left, right before you get to the kitchen. And as I groggily walked out the door, I looked down at the end of the hallway, and as I feel like the light was very dim, and I feel like I saw some kind of, honestly, it could have been anything for the moment. I saw something like standing there, and I was like, no, that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. As I turned the light on, I saw red eyes turn yellow, turn red again for only a split second. And I was like it was a man standing at the end of the hallway with these weird eyes, and I was like, I've got to be asleep. Turned the light back off, turned it back on, it was gone. Don't know if that was the Mothman or not, but I think it was. I really believe that was.
And was your father still alive at that point?
At that point, he was. That is correct.
Do you believe that your family is being targeted by these Mothmen?
I often wonder that. That's a great question, Brooke. Yeah. I often wonder that. It seems that my sister never really was the same after the incident. My mother, she left us shortly after Dad's demise. And I really feel like... and I haven't talked to my sister in a while, but... and
I noticed that your West Virginian accent is completely gone, so...
I'm a reporter.
That's true. You got to do regional dialect.
I have to have that reported.
But I feel like you have done so much to distance yourself from that past
Oh no, I love my
You don't
home.
want any reminder of it.
Oh no, I love my home.
Oh,
It's very dear to me. Mason is my city. It's my, or let's say city. It's my town.
Yeah.
Today's Town and Country is my writing, my blood. Uh, no, as a reporter, I had to, because sometimes I do local news, so I had to change my voice.
Exactly. Do you feel any sort of pushback or backlash from your journalism community? Do people? 'Cause we've talked about this before. Is that people that are usually experts in their field, they do get a little bit, maybe bullying, they do get a little bit of pushback from their peers. Have you gotten any of that? Are people generally receptive of what you have to say? Because I know in West Virginia, Mothman is a huge part of the community and society, those stories. So do you have a supportive community, or are you sort of like, get out of here? Are you being alienated at all?
Absolutely the most supportive people I can ever imagine. Everybody knows the story. They in 2002 they created almost a parade and a celebration each year for and centered around the Mothman.
Yeah, Mothman Day. Mothman
Yes,
Day.
absolutely. And I'm there every year. I have a lot of support for this. And the naysayers, they can go to hell. They can just go to hell. They don't understand it. They don't understand it.
And they can't. There's no way they can. I want to talk a little bit about the psychic element of the Mothman, because there is something that kind of links everybody together, because all of these encounters have the sort of like premonition aspect to it, that there has been a psychic response to the Mothman, saying that people received either these visions or they received like a communication from the Mothman prior to these disasters happening. Is there any sort of truth to that for you, Johnny? And then I'll also pose the question to Dr. Seymour as well, as scientifically, how could something broadcast a giant psychic communication like that?
To me, all the investigations and the articles I've written and the stories that I've presented, I've only taken that angle once or twice. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. There's no evidence proving to me that this could be any kind of supernatural. Now, was it a military experiment? I don't know. Just saying.
I think, more often than we'd like to admit, so many of these things that, seem out of the ordinary or supernatural, I wonder if the government had a hand in their creation, or, maybe the government's been trying to keep them a secret from us. And, they trickle out here and there. It seems I have a funny feeling that might happen more often than we realize.
Well, and it is speculated that the Mothman does live in a munitions stronghold where they did testing in World War II. So that's sort of been I don't know if it's the official or unofficial epicenter, but that is sort of the widely accepted location, is that he does live in this stronghold.
All right. So, Johnny, going back to, maybe not necessarily psychic, but have you, in the stories you've covered, seen any sort of correlation between the, Mothman appearances and whether it's disasters or special moments or people winning the lottery? What's been your experience with that?
Anytime, I'll be honest with you, Walt, anytime it appears that we have a flutter in the weather, the hurricanes that have been so much stronger hitting our East Coast, and the evacuations and the problems that we have with the high winds and the climate change, it's been more than often. Some of the latest sightings have been seen during disasters such as the hurricane. People have seen strange things flying through the air. and sometimes it's in the form of half man, half bird, or Mothman. And I wrote the article back in 2006 about that, and I revised it in 2013 in one of our worst storms that hit. And some of the ladies of the area in Mason were scared to death because of this. They saw something in the air, and it was more than one. And to me, do I believe the weather or something devastating is connected with said Mothman? Yes, I do believe that, Walt.
Wow.
Dr. Seymour, could there be a scientific explanation to these psychic communications, or any correlation between? I know you have a meteorology degree as well. Is there any sort of correlation between like a weather event and a Mothman sighting?
To the first point, the psychic ability goes right along with some things we were mentioning earlier about potentially being a higher or more evolved version of humans, and having abilities that we have not yet refined, that from an evolutionary standpoint, our ability to just know those things around us is going to lose the natural selection battle to psychic abilities, being able to know more things, future things, psychic things, which is why that would be the next evolutionary step. But there is also evidence, as Johnny was mentioning, and all of you, tying this to the government in countless ways. And once you go there and you get into the government, the military, it seems silly that we're talking about antenna again for a completely different reason, away from the feathers idea that cropped up in a discussion here, that is an effective way to communicate with this person. That is an effective way to send information. And weather events, probably, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a causation. It is an effective way to halt communication between other people, as we know. Phone lines going down, cell phone towers becoming disturbed in major weather events. So it would only be these really high level communication devices that would be able to still continue to operate at a high level, and therefore you would see the Mothman able to accomplish things and appearing a lot during these events.
So it's almost as if, perhaps the Mothman doesn't cause these events, but is more hyper aware and takes advantage of these events to communicate with humans. Or I think that's a big question we'll have to ask is, what are they trying to communicate? What are they trying to accomplish?
Well, we'll ask you that, Johnny, because you have such a connection to the Mothman. I'll just reiterate what Walt said. What is he trying to communicate?
What is he trying to communicate? It's complicated, I think. I firmly believe he maybe wants an escape. You see, I firmly believe that it's a military experiment. I'll go ahead and say it. I think you've seen my articles. I believe that he has been made, not on the supernatural side, that he has been made. He's a half man, half moth, and that he is absolutely trying to escape from the power of the military. So when you have a major disaster or something happening that is extreme or out of the ordinary, that is when the Mothman comes out, because at that point the military is busy with hunkering people down or helping out in the community, and it gives Mothman a chance to maybe get out of the situation. So, as much as I feel the pain of the death of my father and people that have passed on Sofa Bridge, I also feel like it's a call for help.
Yeah, I was just about to say he could be attacking out of fear.
I believe so.
Yeah, because people ask, oh, is he good or is he evil? It could be a neutral situation.
Well, yeah, that's like asking, is a human good or evil? Well, yes or no, maybe a little bit of both, a gray area, right?
Yeah, it's possible that if he's trying to escape and he's attacking out of fear, he may not trust any human. And so he might view humans as a threat at all times. I look at the instance in Moscow in 1999. It sounds like he was trying to warn people about a bombing. Now, I don't know for sure, but if there's any sort of, reaching out, he could be trying to say, I'm not bad, but I'm trying to figure you guys out. I think it all depends on how we react to his messages. He's sort of like taking cues from us. It's like, well, if they're going to react like this, then what's the point of me trying to help? It could just come down to a trust thing.
Mothman has trust issues. Interesting. I think I'm going to say that's definitely, probably mostly 100% correct.
Yeah. And the thing is, we don't know if we can trust him. It's not like he's coming out saying, hey guys, here I am. This is what I want. This is what I'm doing for you. I mean, we see the track record, and because people are reacting in fear, he's just sort of like recoiling and might be just reacting instead of acting. Unfortunately, your father's death and maybe the death of others or the accidents other people have had have just been because they're scared and he doesn't know how to react.
I'm sorry, are you asking me?
Yeah, I mean, I was just sort of speculating here. I mean, do you think that...
I agree with you. I have to say, yeah. I think you've pinpointed it. I think there is a trust. I think there is a scarce with him because I truly believe, and that's why I have dedicated my life to trying to find this creature and understand it, know why. What, maybe just offer my hand and a handshake and say, hey, it's going to be okay.
And that is very kind of you. You don't have to.
If you're comfortable with it, Johnny, I'd like to maybe see if we can work out what really happened that night with your father after we take a quick break and come right back. Obviously, I don't want to dredge up one of the most horrifying and emotionally scarring incidents in your life, but maybe we can help work this out.
I'd like that.
And we're back this week talking about the Mothman with John Patrick Kobracks, aka Johnny. Earlier in the show, he, kind of told us about what sparked his interest in the Mothman, and really kind of forged a bond that can't be broken. And I'd like to go back and maybe see if we can, root out more of the purpose of this. I don't know what it is, whether it's an abduction or, I don't know, maybe maybe your father went to help, but I'm not sure.
And it seems that his motive for dedicating his life to the Mothman has gone from vengeance to more of a healing and outreach effort through his articles in the publication Today's Town and Country, which you can read about locally in West Virginia, or you can check them out online, Today's Town and Country.
Yeah, Brooke, you sent me some of the links to those articles, and I have to admit, you know how I am. I didn't read any of it, but they have some really great cartoons. I have to say, I enjoyed those. Yeah, I enjoyed those. Yeah, so be sure to check out their website. I'm sure the articles are great, and it's nothing personal. I just nothing against them. I just don't read. So Johnny, yeah, I think we've got possibly a Batman Joker, Van Helsing, Dracula thing going on here.
Yeah, John Patrick Kobracks and the Mothman.
Yeah.
We can't have one without the other.
Going back to some of the funny cartoons that you see in a publication, one of the old ones, which I can laugh about it now, was it's kind of a knock joke, but it's what happens when you get five guys digging a grave in Point Pleasant.
Who's there?
Who's there? You beat me to it.
The Mothman.
Oh my God.
That's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, it stinks.
Yeah, I do have to admit that the cartoons were a little Mothman heavy for a newspaper, but I still enjoyed them, to be honest. The modern one. I'm glad we have a bit of levity to this.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And who knows? Maybe there was humor in this in your father's disappearance, and maybe he's still alive out there somewhere, and we just don't.
I don't think he's dead. I don't. I honestly don't. I think that he's perhaps brought back to a nest or said cocoon, and that he's still alive to this day. And perhaps the Mothman. Perhaps there was something we talk about saving, and that's why I've Brooke mentioned how I've turned away from vengeance and have dedicated more of myself to just finding the mystery of the Mothman and where he hangs and what he does. If there is a nest, if there's a cave, if there's a place, and that's where I have scoured West Virginia looking, but it is
there's a lot of caves in West Virginia.
There really are, and it's not a big. I'll give you guys one little thing. I'm not great with small places, so yeah, I'm not a spelunker, if you will. Mm-hmm. I'm not a person of caves, so.
Right, that kind of okay, yeah.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of bat caves in West Virginia. There's Carl's Bat Caverns.
Mm-hmm.
And so there could be a correlation there. So I mean, I know you're on the right path to becoming, beginning this hunt. So I do want to ask, because you said that you believe your father might still be out there. Did you have any evidence to back that up? Have you received any sort of communication, evidence, photos, record anything to suggest that your father's still alive, or is it just a hunch?
I have not received any photos. I'm not sure not be honest with you, I'm not sure the Mothman knows how to take a picture. But I feel like his presence is still there. I feel like as many times I've gone through this story that something tells me I've never had closure with this. Something tells me that one of those caves somewhere by Point Pleasant, or it could be my Mason. I'm not sure, but it could be any of the small towns around. That my father, John Patrick Kobracks Sr., is still alive somewhere. I feel it. I know it. I don't know. It's a hunch, but I feel it inside my gut.
Mm-hmm. I think that's perfectly reasonable and natural and even accurate. That's such a strong bond that I think that's as much proof as a photograph or electronic mail message or a telephone call.
Sometimes hope and faith is all you need. And sometimes that's enough for me.
Yes, correct. So I think that, and then we still have the question of why. Why? Maybe your father, maybe he is still alive, but he wouldn't be if the Mothman hadn't taken him. If that's indeed what happened, I'm going to, it sounds like that's the most logical step. But maybe the Mothman, if he hadn't taken him, he would have met his demise in a terrible, terrible, awful, terrible way.
But I certainly hope not.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of just about everything, we're just going to say, because we don't have, it's like comic books, no body, no death. They never found him, so he could still be out there, and we are going to hope and pray that he still is. And we don't know the reach of this show. If there is some sort of agency, we know we're being surveilled. So if there's any sort of agency or group that is housing the Mothman, if he is this sort of agent in the government or a government, and they're listening to this, maybe just give us a little something, give us a little closure. If John Patrick Kobracks Sr. is still out there, please let us know, because these are real lives, and we talk about real true facts, or these are real true lives, and they're just as important.
I think that's a good. Thank you, Brooke. I'm glad there's some hope coming out of all this, and that leads me to ask Johnny, what does the future hold for John Patrick Kobracks?
Faith, search, hope. I will not stop. I could be 97 years old, and I will not stop if I haven't found John Patrick Kobracks Sr. It is my lifelong journey. In the meantime, I feel like I just got to keep digging and searching and searching and digging.
Well, I hope that search includes seeing each other at the Mothman Days pancake eating contest next year.
Ooh, I love pancakes. Now, is it just pancakes, or do they have waffles or crepes? I feel like, man.
No, there's no crepes in West Virginia. What are you talking about?
I don't. I have to ask because I love me some crepes.
I know you do. It's biscuits and gravy. It's pancakes. It's buns and sweets galore, because I know we get really heavy, but the Mothman Days Festival is actually really fun, and that is the first place that I met Johnny. He actually signed his first copy of Today's Town and Country for me. That was years ago. I don't know if you remember me, but he signed that for me years ago, and I've held on to that all these years, and it is just such an honor to talk to you today. I knew about your family's history. I didn't know that we would go into it as deeply as we did, and hopefully it was a very healing, almost maybe cathartic interview for you. I know it's kind of different than interviews you have done in the past, so we just really appreciate you coming out here today to talk about your experience and your life's work with us.
Thank you, Brooke. My goodness, I never forget a beautiful face. Brooke Burke, absolutely. Thank you.
Brooke, right. So what's, if anyone has information regarding, Mothman sightings or locations or anything, I believe we have an email address. Is that correct, Brooke?
We do. Our email address is realtruefactsmail@gmail.com. And if you have any sort of Mothman leads, Mothman stories, anything like that, feel free to email us. You can also follow us on Instagram at realtruefactsgram. And as the kids say, you can slide into our DMs there, and you can send us your questions, or you can send us any sort of leads information you might have regarding the whereabouts of John Patrick Kobracks Sr. and Jr., I guess, but we know where he is. But because we got to do some outreach too. So we got to try and do some good in the world. We can talk all day about these things, but unless we act and do good works, then it's like, what good is the truth if it's not in action?
Right. And Brooke, before we close out the Mothman discussion, one good thing I think we try and do week to week, if Dr. Seymour is still with us, is kind of safety tips. What should someone do if they encounter a Mothman? Right. I know I think that's important to me. Keeping folks safe. Dr. Seymour, what's a simple thing to do if we encounter a Mothman?
From a purely scientific but not experiential point of view, obviously that would be Johnny's area of expertise, is to assume that if we are talking about the crossover of the two species here, the attraction to certain artificial light could be a way to, if you are frightened, if you're feeling uncomfortable, because there's lots of questions, good, bad, in between. So a person in that experience wouldn't know how to feel. So if you want to distance yourself, as we're all doing right now, for other obvious reasons, a circular artificial light would easily distract the Mothman. It mimics the look of the moon by which they navigate. That would allow you to evade them a little bit.
Yeah. So we have cell phones with lights. I think that's very practical and pragmatic approach.
Yeah, I wouldn't say turn your phone on and throw it, to get the Mothman to go towards the light.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have like a little flashlight on your key ring, you could turn the flashlight on and then throw your keys and then run away.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back. You can always go back for your keys or your phone later.
Using the flashlight on your phone. So you don't want to be without a flashlight.
Right. So I guess the real safety tip is have some sort of light and never throw all of them at once.
Yeah. Johnny P, is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with today, either regarding your work on today's Town and Country, anything that you're working on that you would like people to know about?
My memoirs. I'm working on my memoirs right now. The story, Johnny Kobracks, part 1, 2, and 7. I've only completed those because the middle is still working, and I feel like 7 is heaven, and heaven would be knowing what happened to my father. So that, and just the continued investigation into everything around Mason and Point Pleasant, but certainly anything and all having to do with the Mothman.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
continuing the search.
So, sorry. Thanks again for coming out, Johnny, and as always, Dr. Seymour.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure as always. Thank you.
Yes, it is a distinct pleasure. So we will keep tabs on John Patrick. We will keep people updated with what he's doing. And please, Johnny, let us know when your memoirs are done. Please send us a copy.
Yes,
and we would love to display that in our various bunkers. I already have your headshot, and I think it's just wonderful. So I'd love to put the memoir with it. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your tough but also inspirational story today. And also thank you to Dr. Seymour for giving us more scientific support about the Mothman and educating all of our listeners and us about our world around us.
So why don't we take a quick break and come right back with our viewer mail.
We'll be right back. Okay, let's get into some viewer mail. It is a mixed bag today of messages. So we have a couple questions and we have one comment.
Okay.
The comment is in response to our Egypt episode. That was the episode we had last time.
Yes, Mysteries of Egypt, right?
Yes, the Mysteries of Egypt with Dr. Lauren J. Excuse me, the comment was from our Instagram account. So you can always comment on our posts on Instagram. It's at Real True Facts Graham. You can comment on our posts or you can send us a message. This person sent us a message and it looked like it wasn't a person, but a cat that had an Instagram account. It looked like it was run by a cat. And the comment says, regarding our Egypt episode. This gave me epic pleasure, and pleasure was in all caps.
Whoa. So I've heard all caps. That means you're shouting.
They're yelling.
Right. Or yelling. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean,
So you're welcome. I guess.
Human. I think it's great that we're bringing pleasure.
We aim to please. We also have a couple questions. One is just sort of a general inquiry. This is from George M. He wants to know if he should drink bleach. And I went ahead and just said, no, you should not drink bleach.
Yeah, I think that's pretty definitive on all fronts, no matter whom we ask. That's a hard no.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that. No, not all real true facts have to be like super heavy. Like they can just be general truths, and a truth of the world is don't drink bleach. Our main question, our biggie question today, comes from Ryland S. He asks, is a global government working under the Denver airport waiting to take over?
Denver airport. Well, wouldn't
specifically the Denver airport.
Wouldn't he like to know? I mean, I can actually answer that and say no, not the Denver airport, but there is a lot more to that. So much more, in fact. What do you say we cover that next week?
I think we should. Let's talk about, would that be a secret society? I
think it's it's a society that's secret, but not necessarily a secret society.
But also global.
Yeah, it is I mean, if we're talking about secret global organizations, that piques my interest. We don't. If I'm being honest, I don't want to do a government episode yet. Because I'd like to work some things out first on this in my bunker.
Sure. Yeah.
I shouldn't have to say much more than that, but I think we should hold off.
Yeah, no, for obvious reasons, you totally get it. But yeah, let's tackle that next week. We will talk about, I suppose, maybe just mid-level secret societies.
Yeah, I mean, I think mid to mid, small up to large.
Like a mid-range.
Yeah, because they all start small and mid, and they just so happen to.
And they get global.
Right.
We'll hold off on the global aspect of it, but and then I guess specifically what airports have to do with that. Denver, maybe mysteries out of Colorado. I know there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings there, so.
Right, and if anyone has any questions or comments regarding that, not only do we have an email address, but we now have an Instagram.
We do.
So you can reach out there.
Yes, Instagram is @TrueFactsGram, GRAM, and if you like the show, if you are a fan, or you're still trying to figure out if you enjoy the show but you're still listening, tell your friends. If you like us, you can give us a hand by telling your friends. Have them listen to us. Send us your queries. It really helps. It gives us warm fuzzies.
Right.
And makes
if we're
us
talking
feel
about
like
promotion, please write a review on iTunes and give us however many stars is the highest number on iTunes. I have to. I'll ask for that much.
Like 1 billion.
Yeah, it's either. It's something like 5 or 10 or 1 billion. It's one of those.
Whatever the maximum. I'm not even gonna say that. Just listen to your heart. Give us as many stars as you feel in your heart, and we'll earn that. We gotta earn that. But I want to say thank you to our guests, and again, thank you to our listeners. Message us, comment, tell your friends. That makes us feel like what we're doing is all worthwhile. So I will say thanks again. And we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. We'll close up all of our various bunkers here. And there we go. So we will see you next time and hear you next time on Real True Facts. Because just because you hear it or read it doesn't mean it's true. We will see you next time.